You ever had a crush that felt like it could burn a hole through your chest? The kind where just seeing them smile made your whole world tilt, like the ground wasn't solid anymore? For me, that was Emily. She was my first everything, my first crush, my first daydream, my first heartbreak. I was 12 years old, this gangly kid with braces and a mop of messy brown hair, and she was 19, the coolest person I'd ever met. She lived next door, in a house with a creaky porch swing and a garden full of wildflowers. She'd ruffle my hair, call me kiddo, and I'd melt into a puddle of nerves and hope. I'd spend hours lying in my backyard, staring at the clouds, imagining us together, stupid, impossible kid fantasies where she'd see me as more than just the neighbor boy. I'd picture us running off to some big city, her with her sketchbook, me with, well, I didn't know what, but I'd figure it out for her. Then, one day, she was gone. Moved to Chicago for grad school, no warning, no goodbye. I thought that was the end of it. I grew up, moved on, or at least I told myself I did. High school, football, first girlfriends, they filled the space she left. But 7 years later, when I was 19, I walked into my dad's house for Thanksgiving, ready for a quiet holiday. I saw her sitting at the dinner table. Smiling. Wearing a ring. My dad's arm draped around her shoulders. Emily, my childhood crush, was now my stepmom. And the worst part? That burning in my chest, that ache I thought I'd buried? It never went away. It was back, stronger than ever, like a fire I couldn't put out. Let's take it back to the beginning, to that small town in Ohio where I grew up. It was one of those places where everyone knew your name, your dog's name, and what you had for dinner last night. Front porches were for gossip, and secrets didn't stay secret for long. My dad was a single parent, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart bigger than his paycheck. He worked long hours at the garage, so I was often left to my own devices, kicking a soccer ball against the garage or doodling in notebooks full of half-finished stories. Our neighbors, the Thompsons, were like an extension of our family. They'd have us over for barbecues, and Dad would bring his famous potato salad that everyone pretended to love. Their daughter, Emily, was, well, she was magic. Blonde hair that caught the sunlight like it was made for it, a laugh that felt like it was inviting you into a secret, and eyes that seemed to see right through you, like she knew what you were thinking before you did. She was in college, studying art, and she'd come home on weekends with paint-splattered jeans and stories about gallery openings and city lights. To me, she was untouchable, like a character from a movie I could never star in. She was 7 years older, a lifetime away in my kid brain, but that didn't stop me from dreaming. I was this scrawny, awkward kid with a stutter that came out when I was nervous, which was basically every time Emily was around. But she never made me feel small. She'd sit on that porch swing, sketching flowers or faces or abstract swirls, and I'd find any excuse to be nearby. I'd mow our lawn for the third time that week just to steal glances at her. Sometimes she'd catch me staring and wave, and I'd trip over my own feet trying to act cool, my face burning red. One summer, when I was 12, she asked me to help her paint a mural in her family's garage, a big, chaotic swirl of colors that looked like a sunset exploding. We spent hours together, paint cans scattered around us, laughing when we got more paint on ourselves than the wall. She'd tease me, saying I'd be a heartbreaker one day, and I'd blush so hard I thought my face would catch fire. I'd go home and replay every word she said, every smile, like they were clues to some puzzle I could solve. To her, it was just kindness, she was being the cool older neighbor. But to me, it was everything. Those moments were my whole world. Then, the summer I turned 13, it all stopped. She moved to Chicago for grad school. No warning, no goodbye. One day her car was there, the next it was gone. I'd ride my bike past her house, hoping to see her beat-up Honda in the driveway, but it was always empty. The Thompsons said she was chasing her dreams, and I was happy for her, or I tried to be. But it hurt, like someone had carved a piece out of me. I told myself it was just a crush, that I'd get over it. Crushes fade, right? High school came, football practice, late-night study sessions, first girlfriends who never quite measured up to the memory of her. By the time I was 19, I was in college, living in a dorm 2 hours away, studying engineering and trying to figure out who I was. Emily was a memory, a soft ache I'd buried deep, something I only thought about late at night when I couldn't sleep. Meanwhile, Dad was doing better. He'd started smiling more, talking about settling down. He'd been alone for years, raising me on his own, and I was glad he was happy. He'd mentioned dating, but he was vague about it, just said he'd met someone special, someone who made him laugh, someone he wanted me to meet. I pictured a woman his age, maybe a teacher or a nurse, someone with a kind smile and sensible shoes. I never asked for details. I should have. That Thanksgiving, I drove home, my beat-up Toyota rattling the whole way. I was expecting a quiet holiday, maybe some turkey and football with Dad. He'd been cagey about his new girlfriend, saying she'd be there, and I figured I'd meet this mystery woman and give my approval. I walked through the door, dropped my duffel bag on the floor, and froze. There she was, in the kitchen, setting out plates like she belonged there. Emily. Older now, her blonde hair cut shorter, a few faint lines around her eyes, but still unmistakably her. That same smile that made my knees weak, that same tilt of her head. My dad came up behind her, kissed her cheek, and said, "Jake, meet Emily. My fiancée." My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on a staircase. The room spun, the air too thick to breathe. She looked at me, her eyes widening for a split second, like she was trying to place me. Then she smiled, warm but distant, and said, "Jake? Wow, you've grown up." Her voice was the same, soft and musical, but it hit me like a punch. I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. All I could think was, this can't be happening. My childhood crush, the girl I'd spent years dreaming about, was engaged to my dad. And she was looking at me like I was a stranger. That first dinner was torture. Dad was beaming, his arm around Emily's chair, telling stories about how they'd met at an art gallery in town. Apparently, she'd moved back to Ohio a year ago, after grad school didn't work out the way she'd planned. They'd clicked instantly, he said, over a painting of a stormy sea. Emily laughed at his jokes, touched his hand, played the part of the perfect fiancé. But every time her eyes met mine across the table, I felt it, a flicker of something. Recognition, maybe. Guilt. Or maybe I was imagining it, projecting my old feelings onto her like some desperate kid. I kept my head down, pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, trying not to stare at her. But it was impossible. Every gesture, every laugh, it was like being 12 again, heart pounding, palms sweaty, that same hopeless longing clawing at me. I felt like I was betraying my dad just by sitting there, feeling what I felt. After dinner, Dad went to grab a bottle of wine from the basement, leaving me and Emily alone for the first time. The silence was heavy, the kind that makes your skin prickle. She leaned across the table, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Jake, I didn't know you were his son. This is weird, right?" She laughed, but it was nervous, like she was testing the waters, trying to gauge how I was handling this. I wanted to say something clever, something to make her see me as more than the kid she used to know. I wanted to tell her I'd never forgotten her, that she was still the standard every girl I'd ever dated failed to meet. But all I managed was, yeah. Weird. My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. She looked at me a moment too long, her eyes searching mine, then looked away, like she was afraid of what she'd see. The moment passed when Dad came back, bottle in hand, oblivious to the tension. But it was there, humming between us, impossible to ignore. The next few weeks were a blur of holiday chaos. I was home for the break, stuck in that house with them, every day a test of my self-control. Dad was in his own world, talking nonstop about the wedding, spring, outdoors, Emily's dream venue by the lake. He was so happy, it made my guilt worse. He'd raised me alone, sacrificed everything, and here I was, unable to look at his fiancée without my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Emily, though. She was warm with Dad, always smiling, but there was a distance in her eyes, like she was holding something back. With me, she was careful, too careful. She'd ask about college, my engineering classes, my friends, but her questions felt like they were reaching for something deeper, like she was trying to figure out if I remembered her the way she remembered me. Did she? I couldn't tell. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me, her expression unreadable, and my mind would spiral. Was she thinking about that summer too? Or was I just a ghost from her past, a kid she barely remembered? One night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I went downstairs for a glass of water and found Emily in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. The soft glow of the lamp made her look like a painting, her hair falling over one shoulder. She looked up, startled, and whispered, "Can't sleep either?" I shook my head, sitting on the couch across from her, keeping my distance. We talked small stuff at first, my classes, her latest art project. But then she said, "You know, I always liked you, Jake. You were such a sweet kid." Her voice was soft, almost sad, like she was mourning something. My heart thudded in my chest. I wanted to tell her I wasn't a kid anymore, that I'd never stop thinking about her, that seeing her with my dad was tearing me apart. But I didn't. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak. She looked at me, her eyes lingering, and I wondered if she could hear how loud my heart was beating. The tension grew with every passing day. I'd catch her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, her gaze lingering a second too long. Once, when I was helping her carry groceries from the car, our hands brushed, and she pulled away like she'd touched a live wire. My skin burned where her fingers had been. Another time, I overheard her arguing with Dad in their room, her voice low and sharp, his frustrated and pleading. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like she was pulling away from him, like something wasn't right. My mind went wild. Was she unhappy? Was it because of me? Or was I just a lovesick idiot, reading into things that weren't there? I started questioning everything, replaying every glance, every word, trying to find proof that she felt something too. But the more I thought about it, the more I doubted myself. Maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see, letting my old crush twist my perception of reality. Christmas Eve was when it all came crashing down. Dad threw a big party, invited half the town to celebrate the engagement. Emily was radiant, wearing a red dress that hugged her in a way that made my chest ache. I tried to stay away, sticking to the edges of the party, nursing a soda and avoiding her. But we kept ending up in the same conversations, laughing at the same jokes, our eyes meeting across crowded rooms. At one point, we were alone in the kitchen, refilling drinks for guests. The noise of the party faded, and it was just us, the air thick with unspoken words. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and said, "Jake, are you okay with this? With me being here?" Her voice was raw, like she was afraid of my answer. I wanted to scream that I wasn't okay, that I couldn't stop thinking about her, that every time I saw her with my dad, it felt like a knife in my chest. But I couldn't say that. Not to her. Not when she was about to marry him. So I lied. "I'm fine," I said, my voice flat. She didn't believe me, I could see it in her face, the way her lips parted like she wanted to say something more. But she didn't. She just nodded and turned back to the drinks, and the moments slipped away. After that night, everything changed. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Emily's smile didn't always reach her eyes when she was with Dad, like she was performing happiness rather than feeling it. The way she'd linger when we talked, like she didn't want the conversation to end. I told myself I was crazy, that I was seeing what I wanted to see, but then there were moments that made me question everything. Like when she left her sketchbook on the coffee table, open to a drawing of a boy with my eyes, my jawline, the same curve of my shoulders. It was me, I was sure of it, captured in soft pencil lines. When I asked her about it, she blushed, her cheeks going pink, and said it was just a random sketch, something she'd done without thinking. I didn't buy it. The detail was too precise, the expression too familiar. It was like she'd been carrying me in her mind all these years, the same way I'd carried her. I started finding excuses to be around her. I'd offer to help with chores, washing dishes, fixing a leaky faucet, anything to be in her orbit. She didn't push me away, but she didn't encourage it either. It was like we were dancing around something neither of us could name, a line we both knew we couldn't cross. One afternoon, we were cleaning out the garage, sorting through boxes of old junk. She found a photo from that summer we painted the mural, me with paint on my nose, her laughing beside me. She held it up, her smile soft and nostalgic. "Look at you, all braces and big dreams," she said. I laughed, but my heart was racing. You remember that summer? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. She nodded, her eyes distant, like she was seeing something far away. Yeah. It was special. The air felt heavy, like we were both holding our breath, waiting for the other to say something we couldn't take back. But we didn't. We just kept sorting boxes, the silence louder than words. Dad started to notice, not the tension between me and Emily, but the way I was acting. I was quieter, more withdrawn, always finding reasons to leave the room when they were together. He'd joke about me being moody or distracted, chalking it up to college stress. Once, at dinner, he caught me staring at Emily as she laughed at something he said. He grinned and said, "What, you got a crush on your old man's fiancée?" It was a joke, but it hit like a sledgehammer. My face burned, and I mumbled something about needing air, bolting from the table. Later, Emily found me outside, sitting on the porch steps, staring at the stars. She sat next to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, lavender and something warm, like vanilla. "Jake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to be careful." My heart stopped. Careful? What did that mean? Was she admitting something, acknowledging this pull between us? Or was she just trying to keep the peace, to stop me from making a fool of myself? I wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. I just nodded, and she stood up, leaving me there with the cold night air and 1,000 questions. The wedding was getting closer, and the house was a whirlwind of chaos, caterers calling, planners dropping off fabric swatches, relatives texting about guest lists. Emily was stressed, her usual calm replaced by a restless energy. She'd snap at Dad over small things, like the color of the napkins or the timing of the ceremony. I overheard her on the phone one night, talking to a friend in a hushed voice. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," she said. "He's great, but it's complicated." My heart leapt. Was she talking about me? Was I the complication? Or was I just a fool, clinging to a fantasy that didn't exist? I wanted to believe she felt something, that the glances and the moments weren't all in my head. But I was terrified I was wrong, that she was just having cold feet about marrying my dad, and I was reading too much into it. New Year's Eve was when it all came to a head. Dad was working late at the garage, some emergency repair that kept him out past midnight. Emily and I were alone in the house, decorating for a party he'd planned for the next day. We were hanging string lights in the living room, standing too close, our hands brushing as we passed bulbs back and forth. The silence was deafening, every touch electric. I could feel her beside me, the warmth of her, the way her breath caught when our fingers grazed. Finally, she stopped, turned to me, and said, "Jake, what are we doing?" Her voice was shaking, her eyes wide and vulnerable. I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. "I don't know," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them, "but I can't stop thinking about you." It was the truth, raw and reckless, the thing I'd been holding back for weeks. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. She opened her mouth to say something, but then the doorbell rang, early guests, laughing and stomping snow off their boots. She turned away, her face closing off, and the moment was gone, swallowed by the noise of the party. The wedding was a week later. I stood there in a stiff suit, watching Emily walk down the aisle in a white dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a dream. My dad looked happier than I'd ever seen him, his eyes shining as he took her hand. I wanted to feel happy for him, for them, but all I felt was hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me empty. The ceremony was a blur of vows and music, but I couldn't focus on any of it. All I could see was her, radiant and untouchable, slipping further out of reach with every word she said to him. During the reception, as the band played and guests danced, Emily pulled me aside. We stood in the garden, away from the music and laughter, the air cold and sharp. She looked at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't read, regret, maybe, or resignation. "Jake," she said, her voice low, "I saw you. Back then. The way you looked at me. I never forgot it." My breath caught in my throat. She was admitting it, she'd felt something too, all those years ago. My heart surged with hope, with possibility, but then she kept going. "I love your dad. I chose him. And I need you to let this go. It was like a punch to the gut, the air rushing out of me. I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight with everything I couldn't say. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the garden, the lights from the reception glowing behind her. I left for college the next day, my car packed with everything I owned. I haven't been home since. Emily sends me texts sometimes, checking in, asking about my classes or if I'm eating enough. I keep my replies short, polite, distant. I'm trying to move on, to let go of the ache that's been with me since I was 12. But every time I close my eyes, I see her, the girl from next door, the woman who's now my stepmom. I don't know if I'll ever stop loving her. I don't know if I can. But I know I have to try, for my dad, for her, for myself. Some loves are meant to stay dreams, locked away where they can't hurt anyone. But that doesn't make them hurt any less. So, what would you do if your childhood crush became family? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I need to know I'm not alone in this. Have you ever loved someone you knew you couldn't have? Share your story below, because I could use some company in this mess. And if this story hit you hard, smash the like button and subscribe for more. You never know when love's gonna twist your heart like this, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one.